Awesome. Thank you, Becky. Hello, everyone. Bill Walsh, joined by Andrea Friedman from Save the Children. Andrea, thank you so much for working with me on this conference and this session. It was just a joy and a pleasure. And I think everyone will kind of see our relaxed attitude in the video we're about to present, kind of telling your story of customization, product, and capability in Blackbaud CRM. So we are going to be here ready to take questions or chats along the way, and I'm going to play the recorded video. Let me get that started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session today within Blackbaud Developer Days on lead gen imports in Blackbaud CRM. I'm joined today by Andrea Friedman from Save the Children. Andrea, if you'd introduce yourself and tell us a little about what you do there.
Hi, I'm Andrea Friedman. I work at Save the Children as a solution architect. I've been at Save the Children for 20 years.
Fantastic. And you sent me a photo, and I overshadowed myself because
Bill, we lost audio there.
Today to be speaking to you about the opportunity for efficiency. Did you lose the audio when I went on mute? So I was just muting it so there wouldn't be background noise. Guess I learned a lesson on don't hit mute. I'll rewind just a second.
Thank you.
20 years.
Fantastic. And you sent me a photo, and I overshadowed myself because you said it was dog sledding, and I had to include the dog sledding. Otherwise, you're blowing in the wind and no one knows why. I'm Bill Walsh. I'm the Vice President of Strategy and Innovation at BrightVine Solutions, formerly from Blackbaud. Excited today to be speaking to you about the opportunity for efficiency and capability with Save the Children. Andrea, do you want to tell us a little bit about Save the Children?
Well, Save the Children is an amazing organization serving more than 183 million children in 120 countries. I'm proud to work at Save the Children and do my part.
Awesome. We're excited for your mission and all that you accomplish in the world. I want to mention a little bit about BrightVine. BrightVine Solutions is one of the leading nonprofit data transformation services companies in the world. We service many of the larger organizations that are working with complex data, complex transforms, information, and data and systems management. We also, as a company, provide strategic services to enterprise customers seeking to transform themselves, their organizations, to better outcomes. And we provide managed services for solutions like Razor's Edge, Blackbaud CRM, and we're headed in a direction. We'll have some other sessions at the conference on AI and machine learning and how it can help transform the world. Today, we will be speaking about a company called Data Axle and their utilization within Save the Children as one of the premier data service providers to help transform nonprofits with informed data. And that'll be a key part of today's story. So let's jump right in. Andrea, can you tell us a little bit of, when we talk this word lead gen, what does that mean to you, and what are you trying to do at your organization?
Well, that was a great question, because about maybe 4 years ago or 5 years ago, there was no such thing as a lead. We only captured information as we got money from donors and the occasional name and address that found its way into the system. There was no formal concept of leads. The program was implemented, the lead gen program and department was funded, staffed, and implemented, and all of a sudden we got lots and lots of information, and we needed to figure out what to do with it. The challenge was that the information was really sketchy. It was messy. People just give you their name, they give you their email address. They tend to make typos where they wouldn't if they were entering a donation. So we were getting lots of information. Lots of the information was duplicative of information on our file, and there wasn't a lot of information to compare it to make sure. So we were adding duplicates and dirty data to our system daily, but that's what we had to do. That's all that we could do at the time.
Mm-hmm. your goal is to convert them to action, right? To be able to take these sort of low fidelity yields and build towards engagement, right?
Yes, and we're building the pyramid. So incoming, we have all of the people that requested to hear from us.
Mm-hmm.
They build to donors who build to major donors.
That's great. And a reminder this for the VB Dev Days groups, regardless of the type of nonprofit that you are, whether you're higher education or a hospital system or a nonprofit or a cause-based organization, many of you probably have sources of files of these interested, but not necessarily primary donors who sign up maybe via an affiliate, a radio station, an event, or some other type of walk-up. And you just really have a list of not much data. So I think today's story will resonate with many of you in some way. Let's take a look at kind of the old versus the new. Talk us through, Andrea, kind of how it used to work, and then we'll get into what you're doing today.
Yeah, so because the project or the program was new, we used our import, Blackbaud CRM import, which we have always used for everything else. We imported the files. We gathered the files from vendors and various sources, our website. We merged them into import files. We cleaned up the data. Literally, someone sat and looked for typos, common typos, reformatted the structure so that it all could import into one template. It took hours and hours, 19 hours per week, actually. And the biggest part was cleaning up the duplicates that we were adding to the system. We also, because the matching in BBCRM didn't really emphasize or weight the email address, which was the one piece of information that we knew that we had a lot of exceptions. We had lots and lots and lots, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of names would go into exception files, and we didn't have the manpower to process those manually. So we kind of just said, okay, whatever.
So let's talk about how that transforms to a combination of some vendor partners, some data providing partners, and some customization where you had to roll up your sleeves a little bit, and BrightVine had to roll up its sleeves a little bit and do some technical wizardry to make all that better. What does that look like?
Well, we knew we needed to clean up the data, and we turned to our partner, Data Axle. That's what they do. They took our file and they very easily looked for common errors, reformatted the files for us. We also provided them with a copy of our constituent records, mostly primary address information, so they could match and find duplicates. And then the icing on the cake was that they actually appended from their vast resources of information, profiles and affinity, which we store in our wealth ratings.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just an amazing transition for us. We then, though, implemented BrightVine Data Link, and we got to a next level. We were able to then go into it. Once we were using BrightVine, we could control the weight of our email search so that if the email matched, we could force it to 100%. We knew it was the same record. We could dig into the file and look at old or inactive records, like telephone numbers, old telephone numbers, and match based on that. So we went from hundreds and hundreds of exceptions in a file. I think now we have 4 or 5 out of 20,000 records. So the process is virtually entirely automated.
That's fantastic. Let's dig into that workflow just a little bit more in depth for this audience to kind of understand where there's product and where there's some customization involved.
Yeah.
We kind of walk through what you just said in a more visual way. Help us kind of see that.
Well, we get third parties all over the place. Lead generation information is coming from vendors, both paid and not paid. We gather email address and any other information we can get. There's one little manual part, which is we gather the information right now. We send it off to Data Axle. Data Axle cleans the data. They append it. They add contact information, birthday information, and the profiles, and then they match to our CRM. We get the files back from data axle, and they're automated. They're automatically picked up by BVDL, and we have lots of orchestrations, and this is the beauty of this product. We have both out-of-the-box and custom orchestrations that allow us to really approach our data in the way that we want to. So we can enhance the percent match for email. We can look for, well, one of the things we have are attributes. So sometimes we want to add attributes, sometimes we don't want to add attributes. Out of the box, things are sort of all or none. We were able to say, well, this kind of attribute gets updated, but this kind of attribute gets left alone. And the logic for matching telephone numbers, for instance, we were able to increase the percentage and take out formatting, which helped us greatly.
That's fantastic.
And yeah, those names then go into journeys that are very specific.
Can you mention a little bit about how that multi-channel journey process takes place? You're using some other tools to generate these campaigns from the file came from the third parties, brought into Blackbaud CRM. That becomes the database of record and the source of truth, and eventually where all the information about the journeys is going to land. But you take that engagement through a third-party product, run through that engagement, and then bring it back into CRM. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, it's a very efficient process, and we have lots and lots of information and far better and more reliable information. Part of the really interesting thing that we did was we turned the process upside down. Lots of people typically get the information and then send it out for cleansing. We reverse that process and send it out for cleansing before we actually use it, and thereby increasing the likelihood of engaging our donors or potential donors.
And I just want to mention to the group, there's something there called Digital Marketing Pack. So as you execute, in your case, it's one of the tools you're using is Salesforce digital engagement. There needed to be a place in Blackbaud CRM to bring back some of the privacy, contact information, phone number, email. There's a whole lot of data in that file that there was nowhere to put it in a standardized data model fashion. So BrightVine assisted you by creating a set of repository fields that we have then rolled out to all customers. We call it the Digital Marketing Pack. Are you finding some use for that information?
Absolutely. You know, we were confronted with we were confronted with the challenge to make our opt-in, opt-out process more reliable. We noticed that the information was very inconsistent. Sometimes we had mobile types sell. We didn't always get the date. We were very inconsistent. The structure of the BrightVine table for digital marketing allowed us to, one, clean up the data we already had so we looked at what we had and we put it in the most consistent format into this new table. And then on an ongoing basis, we've organized our information so that it comes in the way that we can use it once it flows out to our data and then to our email system.
That sounds great. Let's take one quick dive into a screen. This is an example of the business process running inside of Blackbaud CRM. This is the BrightVine data link tool, but it's written as a custom process in the Blackbaud CRM SDK. It lives inside the software and it executes. One of the things when we talked, Andrea, I was just fascinated by was how much work you and the team have put into this conflict resolution in order to remove the human element. Can you tell us a little bit about how that's going for you?
Yeah, no, this screenshot, it's not as amazing to other people, but to me, it just makes me sing because we had hundreds and hundreds of exceptions. And those exceptions just went away. And what did that mean? Those exceptions were people that were in the file. What does that mean? Well, those people are already donors, but they've reached out and said, hey, send me a newsletter, keep me in touch. So that's an affinity that we want to capture. But we had to do it manually and we didn't have the time. So we now process this file. If you're an existing donor, you get the information that you reached out. We capture that information. If you're new, we add you to the system and capture where we got you from. And we do it for everybody. In this case, we had 11. I've got it down even further so that we have like 4 or 5 exceptions that have to do with bad data on our side. And that's just amazing because what we're doing is we're following a consistent set of rules that we've built into BVDL. And they're followed very consistently. Human error is, far more dangerous. So we're processing 20,000 records in the way that we want to.
Let's talk for just a second at a technical level. I wanted to just share with the audience kind of how some of this works behind the scenes. So this is some BrightVine code. So Andrea's been talking about this idea of an orchestration. So in the BrightVine solution, when Andrea's team identifies something like, we want a custom rule that says when a new attribute comes in, if it's a new record, we want to add the attribute, but if it's an existing record, we don't. So if you think about that with some exceptions or some human errors, that was part of that 19 hours you were talking about earlier. We can code an orchestration, right? A stored procedure in SQL, allow that to be executed during the import, and then resolve those errors. So just wanted to suggest to this audience that sometimes when you're working with even Blackbaud import itself, there are opportunities for you to intercept and inject in that process by looking at which of the exceptions are causing the most human work, and then recreating code to do that. So we're doing that. We're actually using the Infinity SDK to do that, but it's part of the BrightVine product. And this has been in great partnership with you and your team, Andrea, as you've kind of figured out what those needs are, right?
Yeah, and the best way to do it is to run through files through a test system and see what accepts out. And I just would find patterns. And once I found the pattern that I felt comfortable that we could approach, we developed a custom orchestration to deal with it. So 3 or 4 or 5 custom orchestrations later, we are in very good shape.
Love it. And there are some things that you still wish to do. Can you share a little bit about that with us?
Absolutely. So there are 2 hours or 3 hours of manual labor here, and that's really gathering the information from vendors, downloading files to send off to, and actually making them into one file for Data Axle to process. We know that we need to go to APIs for these third-party files. So if we could eliminate that manual work of downloading, relying on CSV files, that's definitely the next step. And the other thing, I just finished yesterday. We decided, the marketing team decided they needed more affinity groups. So I got 12 new attributes. Now, ordinarily in a regular basic import, I would actually really have to recreate the import because I have to recreate the batch template and the import template. Using BVDL, I just did it in a half an hour. I mean, I just added those files, those attributes. It was very easy, and the process ran as is. I didn't have to recreate it and introduce new errors.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is we're moving more and more towards data lakehouse for the information. So one of the things we have right now is we have the other thing we have for leads is files that aren't really ours that we could have a one-time use for. So we keep those in a data lakehouse, and integrating that information with our lead information is somehow on the horizon as well. Cleaning up that information and sending it off to BrightVine in one fell swoop would be great. So lots of things to do.
Lots to think about, and I think as I consider that question in conversations with technical leaders at all of the nonprofit clients around the world, it's trying to understand what's the best approach for structured and unstructured data to maximize your engagement opportunity, to leverage that data in a way that you have, but to convert those leads into some form,
and,
whether that's a
this is our,
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and we're doing very well with conversions. As a matter of fact, we're approaching a 2% conversion for leads, which I'm told is very good. So
yeah. Fantastic. All right, so I wanted to just comment on a few thoughts for the general audience. This has been a process that I think many of you can relate to. This is something many of you are trying to accomplish, and a few recommendations that anyone, regardless of the tools that you're using with Blackbaud CRM, you might want to think about. think about your opportunities for data orchestrations, whether that's a vendor like BrightVine or others in the market, whether that's industry-leading tools, but they provide a lot of value in terms of the overall work stream to reduce and support and supplement the import facility of Blackbaud CRM. Next, one of the things I loved, Andrea, about what your team was doing is using the data augmentation before the import and not after. So if you'll notice, that step was occurring so you could clean up the data, you could make it better, and what you brought into Blackbaud CRM was right from the start and not cleaned up afterwards in CRM. I think that's a best practice that folks can really relate to.
It helps in identifying duplicates as well.
And so it makes the volume of data flowing in. You're looking at that augmentation for those 10% of the records. You've got the good data and only bringing in the right records and not sort of the bad data. It also gave you an opportunity to look at privacy, contact rules, information on that contact data right up front. And so again, it's better before it comes in, and you're able to consider master policies for data governance and strategies around that. The sort of the complexity of data cleanup and information that already exists versus what's new, and really hash that out in a positive way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been amazing.
And then I think I love hearing your process to analyze exceptions and human effort and figure out during this overall flow, how are we going to make it better and attack it very specifically in a targeted fashion. Let's remove the things that are taking the human time and automate them wherever possible. Great lesson learned there.
And we'll continue.
And we'll continue. And lastly, for this group, as part of the technical conference, I think customization is still a part of larger organizational data volume management. You really have to roll up your sleeves and do some work. It's not just going to come easy or free to take these big volumes of files and get them into a product. Doesn't matter if it's Blackbaud CRM or any other solution. You've got to put the work in. Where's the information coming from? How are we going to clean it up? What are some of the common issues, errors, and problems, and where do we need to do some customization to fix that to make this better? I can't emphasize enough how often I talk to teams and they bring up something and people are spending hours per week, and a simple customization would really help take care of that, or using a tool. So I just want to thank you, Andrea, for sharing your story with us today. I put up some contact information, as well as the contact information for Data Axle. Richard Geiger, some of you may know, is the key contact running the the nonprofit division for them. And he's been a great partner for you, Andrea, I hope, through this journey as well.
Yeah, both BrightVine and Data Axle complete the triangle.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you to everyone. If you have any questions, we're here to listen and respond. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes the video. There was a question about automation of the files and the transfer. Andrea, it looks like you were able to kind of respond to that along the way, related to managing some data transfers to Data Axle and then using an auto load process for BVDL. Is that right?
Yes, we have almost everything automated and are hoping to get the first part directly to Data Axle from the vendor, so that we're not spending time downloading those files.
I do believe Blackbaud Professional Services has some tools for automation just with import and file captures and transfers that they've worked with other customers just to directly use import. So I think there are some automation opportunities for those of you out there, regardless of your source and who you work with. Becky, I think we're reaching a close, if there weren't any other questions for us. And we are grateful for everyone's time, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you both for your time. Appreciate it. And the session survey is in the chat. Thank you both.
Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you.